What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the final day of OTB Radio here from the 2024 PLL Championship Series. Game just ended. Cannons come out on top in overtime. KB joined by the one and only Rosie. Chris Rosenthal finally making an appearance on the pod. It's been long overdue. We talked about this. And pumped to have you. Yeah. What a game. Kind of everything you could ask for in a championship. You know, overtime, back and forth, physicality. Seems like the teams don't really like each other, and that's what all you could ask for in a Philly versus Boston matchup.
Absolutely. It was a perfect recipe. You know, these guys had gone back after it in the summertime. Cannons kept that in mind heading into this one. They had some earlier matchups. You know, the whole tournament was kind of started off with a little fight between the two teams, and that whole atmosphere carried over. Big goalie saves, lead changes, like you said, everything you possibly ask for, capped off by Matt Cavanaugh doing it again. He's just a legend for it.
He puts the K in clutch, does Matt Cavanaugh, and I think the only thing missing from this game overall was we only got about a minute and a half of Michael Sowers, which was unfortunate. Hopefully Mike is okay. Took a tough hit to the turf early on in the game, and it's kind of like one of those things where you wish you could see this game replayed with just Michael healthy and see how things would turn out, but I mean, I think the story of Champ Series overall was just the goalie play between Kirsty, DeLuca, obviously stealing the stage in net for everybody. Nick Washuta was phenomenal for the Archers. Like, the goalie play from last year to this year was on full display, and I think the talk of Champ Series.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you go into sixes format, and people wonder how much of a difference are these goalies going to make, right? Like, there's a chance that maybe they're just kind of like, you know, traffic cones getting in the way because there's so many shots coming from in close. But we saw you have a hot goalie who can really stand on his head. Like Matt DeLuca was phenomenal all throughout the tournament. And he carried that on today. And you saw some cursed responses with some great saves there. I mean, overtime saves in sixes is just, you know, phenomenal. And we saw it. Outstanding performances by those two.
You know, Brian Ullman was hired around this time last year to become the head coach and GM of the Cannons, and they were coming off a 1-9 season, kind of just down in the dumps. What is this organization? And a lot of people throughout the offseason were questioning, what is Brian Ullman doing? He's signing all these free agents, you know, kind of just building a Frankenstein monster of a roster of no real chemistry. And I think the culture that he and his coaching staff have been able to establish, and obviously this week Brody Merrill coming in as an assistant coach for him, the Cannons really trying to just, you know, put another step forward in them kind of getting back to the glory that they once saw in the MLL and trying to, you know, establish a presence as one of the top teams, which Brian Holman and Marcus Holman and Cav talked about ad nauseum in the press conference, saying that the Waterdogs are one of those teams, and you want to get to that pantheon of being one of the top teams in the PLL.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when Brian Holman got signed and decided to, you know, put his stamp on some moves, there was some criticism, you know. He brings over Adam Gittleman, who kind of emerges as a leader for the team, and they don't need to lean on him as being the goalie because they bring in another goalie for that position. You know, bring in Marcus Holman, who's obviously been a legend and obviously productive, but, you know, they do say, well, you're just bringing your son over. You know, there's that question. Then you bring Matt Cavanaugh, who also has this legendary resume, but hasn't quite been as hot in the years leading up as he was in, you know, his earlier parts of his career. You know, you wonder if he can keep getting it done because he has such a physical style of play. How is an older Matt Cavanaugh going to look? You know, we weren't really sure about that. And, you know, he admitted he had had some tough times, kind of had some down times as far as his career goes, but, you know, it always worked out to the position. Brian Holman never doubted him. I spoke with him about a year ago, and he was like, I got to get Matt Cavanaugh. You got to see this guy. He can deliver, absolutely. And, you know, he was right.
You know, Sean Quirk lives on with this organization. He made the trade for Cav. And, you know, I think the other thing to take away from this now is the Waterdogs now lose the regular season championship. They lose the championship series title. And I think Andy Copeland said it perfectly. Like, this is not our identity, is losing championships. You know, we won in 2022, and I think the fact that they've been able to get to 3 out of the 4, obviously they were the anomaly, a world champion not playing in the inaugural championship series because they were the 5 seed, but they continue to make their way into these championship games. That's the culture they have established. They have a core that is put together for the next couple of years. They have some free agent decisions, like he said, in the post-game press conference. But they also had some young guys step up, and is going to make – it's one of those things that it's like it's a good, evil to have where you have to make these decisions. But Kyle Borda stepping up with a massive two-pointer in this game. Jack Traynor had a phenomenal week. Connor had a phenomenal week for them as well. And then obviously Matt DeLuca this week was the star of the Waterdogs across the board, just kind of pulling out his own inner Dylan Ward and learning from his guy. And, Cope talked all week about they talk all week, no matter if Dylan's playing NLL and obviously DeLuca's here, they're game planning together. And I think that relationship is so important for those guys. And, it's another decision that Cope, it's a good decision to have. Jason Rose also played very well in this.
Sure.
Dylan Ward's a free agent. Did Matt DeLuca show you enough to hand the keys over, or do you bring Dylan Ward back for another year?
It's really interesting. They all spoke really highly about Dylan Ward's impact, of course, on the field and off the field. He's just is a sort of a role model for Matt DeLuca and a lot to learn from. You do get down to the situation. There's numbers involved. There's going to be money, contract years, and things like that.
Home cities now.
Home cities, yeah. Dylan Ward is definitely one of the most fascinating free agents. We'll have to see what he actually ends up doing when he puts pen to paper on that. But I think overall what the Waterdogs kind of established is win or lose, PLL championships go through the Philadelphia Waterdogs. You're going to have to beat them if you want that. And, losing this one, losing in the summer, obviously that was really tough on them. It's the worst kind of deja vu, these one-goal championship losses, and this one particularly in overtime like this. But, like we said, if you want the championship, you're going to have to beat the Philadelphia Waterdogs.
And I think now with the added emphasis of these two losses, you have 7 other teams that are going to have to look out for an even hungrier Waterdogs team this coming season, going to home cities, having their homecoming for an actual Philadelphia regular season game. And you heard it all week in the stands. Big-time Waterdogs crowd, big-time Cannon supporters here as well. The Waterdogs have a fan base, and they're going to get behind them. You saw the Waterdogs support group out here too, which was awesome. And I think this week kind of culminated as the first time seeing those true fan dedications. The atmosphere was unbelievable for this game. Brian Holman talked about it was the most tense he's ever felt coaching in a game, and he's coached in a multitude of championship games. But this really felt high octane, high energy, high adrenaline, and just high pressure across the entire game. It never got to a 3-goal lead, I don't think, after that first quarter. It was back and forth, and the energy in that dome was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think maybe it's part of how the St. James is set up. The fans are right on top of the field, and they are obviously knowledgeable lacrosse fans. They've already assembled into their city rivalries, their city affiliations. You had a huge Boston fan base here, a huge Philadelphia fan base here, going back and forth in the crowd. The move to get home cities, it's obviously one that's met with, is it too early to do that? Are there not enough teams? Are people going to be left out? But they do have to feel rewarded seeing the kind of affiliation and these fans, really embracing their their regional teams right now.
Yeah, I mean, an electric overtime game. It was, like we said, everything you could have asked for and then some. I did see the one discussion online with overtime in this format in particular being, is it too quick of a pace and a format to be a golden goal? Should it be, a 3-4 minute overtime? It's an interesting discussion to have. I would love to pick Mike and Paul's brain about that. But it is something to kind of think to when it comes to the Olympics as well, in a format that is so fast-paced and you're going to be going back and forth. Does golden goal really determine, it's very much like the NFL where they had the overtime and it was sudden death, and then playoffs come around and they finally switched it to where each team gets a possession. Does a 3-minute overtime kind of quantify as the lacrosse equivalent to each team getting a possession?
Right, yeah, it's a difficult sort of balance. I understand the point of view being well, listen, we want these games in specific times. We need to know when it's going to end, when it's going to start, for TV, for Olympics sort of thing. It's just more appealing to package it to, sponsors or everything if you can give a specific time. So I get where they're coming from with that. But I also get the side where you're well, you've seen this back and forth game for 4 quarters, and, one guy's going to win a face-off and come down, all of a sudden the game's over. it could feel like a letdown. But I would also counter with, like, there's sort of a harsh, unforgiving side to, well, don't let it get to overtime. Like, that's the rule. That's what's in place. You don't have the opportunity to necessarily answer. So, if it does get to overtime, it could be it for you. You might not get a chance then. You got to take advantage of the time you do have. So,
Kieran McArdle wins the Golden Stick, immediately gives it away to a fan. He felt like he wanted nothing to do with that, and this is 2 straight years now where Golden Stick Award winner comes from the losing team. He's the Golden Stick first. Comment, but I think seeing Kieran respond the way he did, that's just the ultimate competitor that he is, and just the want to win that is inside. Number 6 is next level. It's close to nobody that is out there on the field. And, you saw it in the press conference where he didn't even want to give an opening statement because, he just wants to win. That's the end-all, be-all for him. Winning is what matters. Winning with these guys is what matters. He's the captain of this team for a reason, and you could just see the emotion on Kieran's face throughout, the trophy presentation, knowing that if I would have hit that shot and he said it himself, we could have been the ones on that stage.
Yeah, like I said, back-to-back sort of uncomfortable moments in the trophy presentation where you have the one member of the losing team who has to kind of stand up in front of everybody and, take sort of an individual accomplishment. A lot of these guys really don't want to dwell on individual accomplishments anyway, but let alone when the rest of their team is, suffering in the locker room. You kind of have to be out on an island by yourself there. But, Kieran McArdle, as far as, competitors go, he's one of the ones we've seen throughout the years where you just know his intensity, right? And you know how hard he's fighting for these wins. But I think it kind of is a testament to this Sixes format, Championship Series format. Still pretty young, but you can tell how bad players do want to win it. There's nobody who's saying, oh, well, this is just, a winter thing to get together and, have fun with your teammates. These guys really, really want to fight and win these games. I think we saw that today with the physicality as well.
And it's really turning into, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we saw each other at the Wings and Halifax game, like the Champ Series is kind of really evolving into what Champions League is in professional soccer. Like the teams that are sitting at home right now have been texting guys all week long, like, I need to be there next year. I need to be there next year. And it's like, it's becoming a bragging rights thing to even just get here, but let alone being able to put that trophy in your trophy case at the end of the day, like the now Denver Outlaws have and now Boston Cannons. That's something that's on your resume. That's a banner that's going to fly forever, and multiple teams don't have that honor.
Yeah, it is something, and this was, I think, something that Paul and Mike Rabel kind of spoke to. It is sort of a relegation feel. These teams want to earn the right to be here, and they want to be in the top 4 in the regular season so they can compete for this honor. And winning this trophy has clearly meant a lot to them. And if the Waterdogs had won this, they would have been the first team to win both indoors and out, and that would have been something that they could kind of hang their hats on. And they'll have to, I guess, try again next year. Maybe they'll be able to do it then. We'll see. We'll see if the Cannons win the championship this year and they can pull it off. But there's a lot of history still to be made in this sort of league, and so it means a great deal to the players.
And that's the fun part about the PLL across the board. Summer's only 3 months away before training camp in Albany, which is exciting. Rosie, let everybody know where they can follow you and catch all your coverage of everything you're doing with Inside Lacrosse and across the board.
Yeah, just InsideLacrosse.com. You can see all the PLL coverage we'll be putting together over there. Catch me on Twitter at ChrisRosie22 as well.
Congrats to the Boston Cannons on a hard-fought win. And this has been OTB Radio from PLL Champ Series 2024. We'll catch you guys on the pod. But until then, we'll see you then.